The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council sparkled under the light of 3 artificial suns. Around the massive crystal table, representatives from 200 peaceful civilizations sat in worried silence. Nobody had seen the council leader look this troubled in over 1,000 years. "The reports are true," the council leader said, his silver robes shimmering as he stood. "The harvesters have returned, and they have already destroyed 3 outer worlds." Whispers of fear spread through the hall. The harvesters were something from ancient nightbooks, terrible beings that consumed entire planets, breaking down all life into raw materials for their endless expansion. Ambassador Tom from the Ring World spoke up, his voice trembling. "But we have no weapons, no armies. We haven't needed them for 10,000 years." His 3 eyes blinked rapidly in distress. "Our civilization has evolved past violence. We wouldn't even know how to fight back." He was right. The Galactic Council had created the perfect peaceful society. War was just a memory. Their technology focused on creation, not destruction. Their children learned about cooperation, not conflict. They had become everything they had always wanted to be. And that was now their greatest weakness. "There might be a solution," said Professor Reed, the council's head researcher. The old alien stood slowly, his transparent skin showing his racing heartbeats. "We have found a world in the outer spiral arm. The beings there still fight wars. They kill their own kind. They are," he paused, "savages by our standards." The council chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Finding a violent species was rare. Most civilizations gave up warfare long before they reached the stars. Professor Reed waved his hand, and a hologram appeared above the crystal table. It showed a blue-green planet spinning slowly. "They call it Earth," he said, "and its people call themselves humans." A hologram changed to show scenes from human history. Soldiers charging across battlefields, ships firing massive guns at sea, metal vehicles called tanks crushing everything in their path, aircraft dropping bombs. The council members watched in horror. "These humans," Professor Reed continued, "have spent their entire history fighting. They have turned the art of war into a science. While we were learning to turn stars into gardens, they were learning to split atoms for weapons. While we were connecting minds for sharing knowledge, they were building machines for destruction." "They're monsters," someone shouted. "No," Professor Reed said firmly. "They are survivors, and they might be our only hope." He showed more recent images. Humans using their military forces to help during natural disasters. Soldiers building bridges in port areas. Armed forces delivering food to starving people. "They can control their violence," he explained. "They understand both war and peace, something we have forgotten." The council leader raised his hand for silence. "The harvesters will reach the first major council world in 6 months. Our peaceful ships can't stop them. Our defensive shields were designed for solar storms, not weapons. We need help." "But they're so primitive," Ambassador Tom protested. "They haven't even colonized their own solar system yet." Professor Reed nodded. "True, but they understand something we don't: how to fight, how to defend, how to stand against an enemy that wants to destroy everything." He looked around the room. "We can give them our technology. They can give us their protection. And if they turn against us," someone asked, "if they use our technology to conquer us instead?" The council leader looked at the hologram of Earth. "Then we die a few years later instead of a few months later. But if there's one thing these records show, it's that humans will fight to protect others, not just themselves. They call it being a warrior. It's different from being just a killer." The room fell silent again. The council members looked at each other, then at the images of Earth floating above them. They had created the most peaceful civilization in history. But now they needed something else. They needed warriors. They needed protectors. They needed humans. "Send the message," the council leader commanded. "Tell them everything. And pray they agree to help." As the council members filed out of the hall, Professor Reed stayed behind, watching the hologram of Earth. From savages to saviors, he whispered to himself. Let's hope we're right about you, humans. The United Nations emergency meeting was unlike anything in human history. World leaders sat stunned as they watched the alien ship descend from the clouds above New York. It was beautiful, like liquid silver flowing through the air, with no visible engines or weapons. General Adams stood at the window of the UN building, his weathered face reflecting in the glass. After 30 years in the military, he had expected first contact to be very different. Maybe a war, like in the movies. Instead, these aliens had simply sent a message. We need your help. The alien ship landed in Central Park, transforming the grassy field into a landing pad without damaging a single tree. The council representatives emerge, 12 beings of different shapes and sizes, all wearing flowing robes that seemed to change color with every movement. They look so peaceful, whispered President Wilson, standing next to the general. Almost fragile. The security teams were on high alert as the aliens entered the UN building. Everyone held their breath as the council leader stepped up to the podium, his silver skin reflecting the camera flashes. People of Earth, the alien's voice was soft but clear, translated perfectly by a small device at his throat. We come to you in our darkest hour. Our civilization spans half the galaxy. We have turned dead worlds into gardens. We have cured diseases that plagued us for millennia. We have created peace that lasted 10,000 years. He paused, his three-fingered hands gripping the podium. And now we face extinction. The hologram he projected showed the harvesters, massive ships that looked like metal insects, stripping entire planets bare. The room fell silent as they watched worlds die. We haven't fought a war in thousands of years, the council leader continued. We forgot how. But you, he looked around the room. You remember, you understand warfare. You know how to fight, how to defend, how to survive. General Adams stepped forward. You're saying you want us to fight your war. We want you to fight for all of us. Professor Reed spoke up from beside the council leader. We offer you our technology, our knowledge, everything we have. In return, we ask for your protection. The Russian president laughed. You watched our history. You saw our wars, our weapons, and you're not afraid of us. We're terrified. Professor Reed admitted. But we're more afraid of extinction. Your species understands something we lost. The difference between being violent and being protective. You fight wars, yes, but you also risk your lives to save others. Your soldiers don't just destroy, they defend. President Wilson stood up. What exactly are you offering? The hologram changed, showing technology beyond human dreams. Spaceships that could cross galaxies. Energy shields that could stop asteroids, medical science that could cure any disease. Everything, the council leader said. All our knowledge, all our technology. We'll help you build it, understand it, use it. In return, you will teach us to defend ourselves. You will lead our defense forces. You will be our guardians. General Adams studied the images of the harvester ships. How long do we have? 5 months before they reach the first major populated system. A year, maybe less, before they find Earth. The room erupted in discussion. Some leaders wanted to accept immediately. Others were suspicious. A few were afraid. President Wilson raised her hand for silence. You're asking us to jump from atmospheric flight to intergalactic travel in less than 6 months. To learn your technology and turn it into defensive systems. To fight an enemy we've never seen, using weapons we've never used, in space we've barely explored. The council leader nodded slowly. The president smiled. Then it's a good thing humans work best under pressure. She stood straight. We accept. As the room filled with excited voices and hurried plans, General Adams watched the alien representatives. They looked relieved, grateful, and still a little afraid. Good, he thought. A little fear was healthy. It meant they understood what they were asking for. Humanity was going to war again. But this time, they were fighting for more than just Earth. They were fighting for the galaxy. and they had a lot of work to do. 3 months had passed since first contact, and the Nevada desert had transformed. Where empty sand once stretched for miles, now stood massive silver structures, the first human-alien joint military base. The facility buzzed with activity day and night as soldiers and scientists worked to master alien technology before time ran out. Inside the main hangar, General Adams watched as his pilots tested the new fighter simulators. The alien ships were unlike anything humans had ever flown. They responded to thought as much as physical control, and they could move in ways that defied Earth physics. "Your people learn remarkably fast," Professor Reed said, floating beside him. The alien scientist had become a regular presence at the base, though he still flinched whenever he heard weapons fire. "It took our species decades to master neural interfaces. Your pilots did it in weeks." Below them, Captain Rogers emerged from a simulator, grinning. His test scores flashed on the screen. Perfect marks again. "It's like the ship becomes part of you," he explained to the gathered crew. "Once you stop thinking about controls and just think about moving, it all clicks." "That's what worries us," Ambassador Tom muttered from behind them. "The way humans adapt our peaceful technology for war." General Adams turned to face the three-eyed alien. "Would you prefer we stick to simple lasers when facing the harvesters?" Before Tom could respond, alarms blared through the facility. On the main screen, a message flashed. The harvesters had just destroyed another outer world, 3 months ahead of schedule. They were moving faster than expected. "How many did we lose?" the general asked. "The planet was evacuated," Professor Reed replied, his transparent skin pulsing with stress patterns. "But the colony, everything they built over centuries, it's all gone." The general nodded grimly. "Show me the attack footage." The screen lit up with images that made even veteran soldiers step back. The harvester ships were enormous, like metal mountains that moved with impossible grace. Their weapons cut through planetary shields like paper. Their hulls absorbed energy weapons without damage. "Those aren't ships," Captain Rogers said, studying the footage. "They're more like space-borne factories. See how they process the debris. They're using everything they destroy to make more of themselves." Professor Reed nodded. "That's why conventional weapons don't work well against them. Their repair systems are too efficient." "Then we don't use conventional weapons," the general said. He turned to his team. "What have we learned from the alien tech so far?" The next hour was a rapid-fire exchange of ideas. Scientists proposed combining council energy systems with human missile technology. Engineers suggested ways to adapt alien shield systems into offensive weapons. Pilots offered tactics that would have been impossible with Earth technology. Ambassador Tom watched in growing amazement. "You're not just learning our technology," he said finally. "You're changing it, improving it. Humans are good at breaking things," Captain Rogers replied with a shrug, "including the rules of how things are supposed to work." Professor Reed's skin flickered with excitement patterns. "That's why we need you. Our species spent so long learning to create, we forgot how to think about destruction. Even now, watching you adapt our technology, my mind struggles to follow your logic." "It's not about destruction," General Adams corrected him. "It's about protection. Every weapon we design, every tactic we plan, has one goal: to save lives. Both yours and ours." The alien scientist stared at him for a long moment, then turned to Ambassador Tom. "Do you understand now? This is why we chose them. Not because they know war, but because they understand what war is for." On the main screen, engineers were already building prototypes of the new weapons. In the simulators, pilots practiced impossible maneuvers that combined alien technology with human instinct. Scientists from both species worked side by side, combining 10,000 years of peaceful progress with humanity's long history of warfare. 2 months, General Adams said, watching his people work. 2 months to turn theory into reality, to build a fleet, to train an army, to prepare for a war unlike anything in human history. He smiled slightly. Good thing we work well under pressure. Behind him, even Ambassador Tom had to agree. The bridge of the Earth Defense Ship Protector hummed with tension. General Adams stood at the command center, watching the tactical display. 50 human ships waited in formation, hidden behind a gas giant's magnetic field. Each vessel was a hybrid of Council technology and human military design. Sleek silver hulls bristling with weapons that had never existed before. Harvester ships entering the system. Captain Rogers reported from his pilot station. 5 major vessels, multiple smaller units. His neural interface connected him directly to the ship's sensors, feeding data straight to his brain. The general nodded. Just like we predicted. They're heading for the colony world. He opened a channel to the fleet. Remember your training. These things haven't faced real opposition in thousands of years. Let's show them why that was a mistake. On the bridge's observation deck, Professor Reed and Ambassador Tom watched nervously. This was humanity's first real space battle, and the fate of the galaxy might depend on it. Enemy ships passing the outer marker, Rogers announced. They haven't detected us yet. The stealth systems are working. Launch the drones, Adams ordered. Hundreds of small, unmanned vessels shot out from the fleet. They looked like Council research probes, but humans had modified them. As they approached the Harvester fleet, they suddenly released clouds of specialized nanobots. Another peaceful technology humans had repurposed for war. Nanobots attaching to target hulls. A technician reported. Beginning infiltration. The Harvesters finally noticed something was wrong. Their massive ships turned, weapon systems charging. But it was too late. Execute primary attack plan, Adams commanded. All ships, engage. The human fleet erupted from behind the gas giant, but instead of firing their weapons, they'd broadcast a specific frequency, one that matched the Harvester's internal communications. The effect was immediate. The nanobots, now inside the Harvester ships, received the signal and activated. Suddenly, the massive enemy vessels began fighting themselves. Repair systems attacked weapon systems. Power networks shut down randomly. Construction units began dismantling crucial components. They're in chaos, Rogers reported, grinning. They never expected their own technology to be used against them. Now, Adams ordered, hit them with everything we've got. The human fleet opened fire. Modified Council energy weapons struck with surgical precision, targeting the weaknesses created by the nanobots. Missile swarms, enhanced with alien technology, bypassed the Harvester's remaining shields. Their coordination is breaking down, Rogers said. The hive mind can't handle the internal disruption. 2 of the massive Harvester ships collided, their navigation systems corrupted by the nanobots. A third began to break apart as its own construction units tore through critical systems. But the Harvesters weren't finished. One of the remaining ships managed to purge the nanobots and fired back. A blast of energy cut through space, destroying 3 human vessels instantly. Evasive maneuvers. Adams shouted. Pattern Delta. The human fleet moved in ways that defied traditional space combat. Ships spun and rolled, using the alien technology's inertial control to perform impossible turns. Each vessel acted independently but coordinated perfectly, demonstrating why humans had been chosen as defenders. They're retreating, Rogers announced after 10 more minutes of intense combat. The remaining Harvesters are jumping out of the system. The bridge erupted in cheers. Of the 5 Harvester ships, 3 had been destroyed, and 2 had fled. The human fleet had lost 7 ships, a painful cost, but far better than anyone had expected for their first space battle. Professor Reed's skin was glowing with excitement patterns. Incredible. You didn't just fight them. You outsmarted them, using their own technology against them, turning their strengths into weaknesses. That's how humans wage war, Adams explained. We find advantages where others see nothing. We adapt. We improvise. And most importantly, he looked at the tactical display, showing the rescued colony world. We protect what matters. Ambassador Tom stepped forward, his 3 eyes wide. I finally understand. You're not just warriors. You're guardians. There's a difference. Yes, Adams agreed. And now the harvesters understand that difference too. He turned to his crew. Send word to Earth and the Council. Tell them what happened here, and tell them to build more ships. Why? Asked Tom. Because now we know we can hurt them. Adams smiled grimly. And that means we can beat them. The real war is just beginning. The training arena on the Council's central world looked more like a dance hall than a military facility. Its crystal walls and floating platforms had been designed for artistic performances, not combat training. But today, it served a new purpose. Again, Captain Rogers ordered, watching as a group of Council species attempted to coordinate their movements. Remember, you're not just individuals. You're a unit. Each of you is part of something bigger. The aliens, a mix of different species from across the galaxy, tried to move together. Some floated, others walked or crawled, each according to their natural form. They were scientists, artists, and scholars trying to learn something their civilizations had forgotten millennia ago: how to fight. Better, Rogers nodded. Much better. You're starting to think as one. From the observation deck, General Adams watched with Professor Reed. After the first victory against the Harvesters, more Council worlds had requested human teachers. They wanted to learn not just how to use weapons, but how to think like defenders. I never thought I'd see a crystal being practicing combat moves, Professor Reed said, watching one of his own kind, a crystalline entity, learning to use its natural form as a weapon. We were pure pacifists for so long. Being peaceful doesn't mean you can't defend yourself. Adams replied. Look there. Below them, Rogers was teaching a group how to use their different abilities together. A floating gas form being provided cover for a heavy gravity species, which in turn protected smaller, faster allies. It wasn't just combat training. It was cooperation on a new level. You're not teaching them to be violent, Professor Reed realized. You're teaching them to protect each other. Exactly. Adams smiled. Humans learned long ago that the best warriors aren't those who love fighting. They're the ones who fight to protect others. In another part of the arena, human engineers worked with Council technicians, showing them how to modify their peaceful technology for defense. Medical scanners became threat detection systems. Environmental shields were adapted into defensive barriers. Construction tools were repurposed as repair units for damaged ships. The Harvesters won't expect this, Ambassador Tom said, joining them. His 3 eyes were focused on the training below. They think we're all still the same peaceful species they can easily harvest. That's their weakness. Adams nodded. They don't understand adaptation. They've been doing the same thing for thousands of years. Consuming, expanding, consuming more. But the galaxy is changing now. On the training floor, Rogers called for a full exercise. The different species moved together, each using their unique abilities. Crystal beings focused energy through their forms, creating shields. Gas form entities provided sensor coverage. Heavy gravity species anchored defensive positions. Look at their progress, Professor Reed said proudly. Just 2 months ago, they couldn't even think about confrontation. Now they move like defenders. Adams finished. They're finding their own way to fight, not copying humans, but learning from us and adapting it to their own strengths. The exercise ended with a successful defense simulation. The trainees gathered around Rogers, their various forms showing signs of exhaustion, but also pride. They were no longer just peaceful beings. They were becoming protectors. General, a communication officer called from nearby. We're getting reports. The Harvesters have changed course. They're gathering their forces instead of spreading out. They're adapting too, Adams mused. They know they can't just harvest worlds easily anymore. They'll try something new. Are you worried? Ambassador Tom asked. Adams watched as another group of trainees took their positions, ready to learn. Across the galaxy, Similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of worlds. Peaceful species were learning to defend themselves, each in their own way, all guided by human teachers. "No," he said finally. "Let them adapt. Let them gather their forces. They'll find a galaxy that's not what they remember. Not just humans waiting for them, but a whole civilization that remembers how to fight back." Below, Rogers started another training session. The general smiled as he watched the different species move together, each finding their own way to become defenders. "We're not just teaching them to fight," he said. "We're teaching them to survive. And that's something humans know very well." The combined fleet of human and council ships filled the space around Jupiter's orbit. 500 vessels of all shapes and sizes, each representing a different species, all united under human command. This wasn't just a defensive force anymore. It was the first galactic offensive against the Harvesters. General Adams stood on the bridge of the flagship Unity, studying the tactical display. The Harvesters had gathered their main force, nearly 1,000 ships, in a distant system, preparing for what they thought would be their final push against the galaxy. "They still think they're the hunters," Captain Rogers said from his station. "They don't realize they've become the hunted." Professor Reed, now serving as the fleet's chief science officer, floated near the tactical display. "All ships report ready, General. Even species that never fought before are prepared for battle." The general nodded. The past few months had transformed the galaxy. Every peaceful species had found its own way to fight, its own way to defend. Now it was time to show the Harvesters what they had created. "Send the signal," Adams ordered. "Begin Operation Thunderstorm." The fleet split into 3 groups. The first, led by crystal being ships, moved forward. Their vessels, made of living crystal, began to shine with gathered energy. The Harvesters' long-range sensors would see them as a small, desperate attack force. "They're taking the bait," Rogers reported. "Harvester fleet is moving to intercept." The second group, composed of ships from gas-form beings and other naturally stealthy species, moved silently through space, their modified cloaking technology making them nearly invisible. They carried the fleet's newest weapon, a combination of human ingenuity and council science. Phase 2. Adams commanded as the Harvester fleet approached the crystal being ships. "Execute." The gas-form ships appeared inside the Harvester formation. Instead of attacking, they released clouds of modified nanobots, far more advanced than the ones from the first battle. These nanobots carried a special program, designed by humans, but built with council technology. "Infection spreading," Professor Reed reported, his transparent form glowing with excitement. "The Harvesters' communication network is being corrupted." The massive Harvester ships began to lose coordination. Their hive mind, which had guided them for thousands of years, was being rewritten. Confusion spread through their ranks as individual ships lost contact with each other. "Now," Adams ordered, "all ships, attack." The third group, the main battle fleet, jumped in. Human ships led the charge, followed by vessels from every council species. Each fought in their own unique way. Crystal ships fired energy beams that bypassed Harvester shields. Heavy gravity species used their ships as living battering rams. Gas-form vessels slipped through enemy defenses to strike critical systems. And the humans? They coordinated it all, turning the chaos of different fighting styles into a synchronized dance of destruction. "Their formations are breaking," Rogers called out. "They can't adapt fast enough." The Harvesters tried to fight back, but they faced something they had never encountered before: unity. Every species they had ever harvested was now fighting together, each contributing their own strengths to the battle. "Main Harvester control ship detected," Professor Reed announced. "Their leader is trying to restore order." "All ships," Adams commanded, "focus fire on these coordinates. Show them what a united galaxy can do." The combined fleet turned as one. Crystal ships focused their energy beams. Gas-form vessels released their nanobots. Heavy gravity ships cleared a path. And human vessels delivered the final strikes. The Harvester control ship exploded in a flash of light that lit up the system. Without central coordination, the remaining Harvester ships fell into disarray. Some fled. Others fought randomly. Many simply shut down. Victory confirmed, Rogers announced as cheers erupted across the fleet. The Harvester main force is destroyed or retreating. Professor Reed's skin pulsed with joy patterns. We did it, not just humans, all of us together. This is just the beginning, Adams said, watching the tactical display. They'll regroup, try to adapt, but now they know. Know what? Ambassador Tom asked from his observer position. That the galaxy isn't filled with easy prey anymore. Adams smiled. Now it's defended by something they never expected, a family of species, each unique, each strong in their own way, all protecting each other. He looked at the celebration on his bridge, seeing humans and aliens working side by side. And family, he added, is something worth fighting for. 1 year after first contact, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. Military uniforms now stood alongside flowing robes. Defense screens complemented the artistic displays. And at the center of it all, General Adams faced the council leader, ready to make history. The last Harvester stronghold has fallen, Adams reported, his voice echoing through the Grand Hall. Their homeworld was hidden in deep space, but we found it. Not through force, but through cooperation between all our peoples. The tactical display showed the final battle. Human ships had led the assault, but every council species had played a crucial role. Crystal beings had cracked the planet's defenses. Gas-form entities had infiltrated their systems. Heavy gravity species had anchored the attack formations. And the Harvesters themselves, the council leader asked. Given a choice they never gave others, Adams replied, surrender and change, or face extinction. They chose change. Their knowledge will be preserved, their technology studied, but their days of consuming worlds are over. Captain Rogers stepped forward, now wearing the new uniform of the Galactic Defense Force. We've established monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. A mix of human military personnel and council species work together in each one. No threat will ever catch us unprepared again. Professor Reed, his transparent form now bearing military honors, displayed the latest data. Crime across council space has dropped to near zero. The mere presence of trained defense forces prevents most conflicts before they begin. The council leader stood, his silver robes shimmering. When we first discovered Earth, we saw only savages. We were desperate, reaching out to violent beings because we had no choice. He smiled. We were wrong. We didn't find savages. We found protectors who had been waiting for something worth protecting. Humans taught us more than just defense, Ambassador Tom added, his 3 eyes showing respect. They taught us balance, the difference between peaceful and helpless, between violent and protective, between existing and living. Adams nodded. And you taught us too, how to use our strength wisely, how to protect without destroying, how to be warriors of peace, not just war. The council leader raised his hands. Then let us make it official. Let the records show that from this day forward, Earth and its people are appointed as the official guardians of the galaxy. Not as our servants or mercenaries, but as full partners in a new era. The chamber erupted in cheers. On screens across the galaxy, billions of beings watched as humans formally accepted their new role. We will establish training academies on every major world, Adams announced. Not to create armies, but to teach defense. Each species will develop its own way of protecting peace, guided by human instructors, but true to their own nature. And the defense fleet, someone asked, will remain a combined force. Rogers answered, humans will lead, but every species will contribute. Our strength lies in our differences, in how we complement each other. Professor Reed activated a final display, showing the new Galactic Defense Force emblem. A human hand joined with various alien appendages, all reaching toward the stars. A year ago, we came to Earth begging for protection. The council leader said, "Today we stand as equals, different but united, peaceful but strong, and most importantly, ready for whatever the galaxy holds." General Adams looked around the chamber, remembering that first desperate meeting a year ago. "We were called savages," he said softly. "And maybe we were. But sometimes it takes a savage to become a true guardian, to understand the price of peace and be willing to pay it." "And now?" Ambassador Tom asked. Adams smiled. "Now we are what we were always meant to be. Not conquerors or killers, not savages or soldiers. We are protectors, guardians, teachers." He looked at the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. "We are family." Outside the council chamber, the first class of mixed species defense forces stood at attention. Humans stood alongside crystal beings. Gas-form entities floated next to heavy gravity species. Each different, each unique, all united. The age of helpless peace was over. The time of protected peace had begun. And somewhere out in the galaxy, any force that thought to threaten that peace would learn what humans had always known. The greatest strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the will to protect. The savages had become saviors, and the galaxy was better for it.